Hello, my name is Chuck Wolfe. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolfe@cjwolfe.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. And this is Chuck Wolfe, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I want to thank everybody who's a regular listener for tuning in. It's great to have you back, and it's great to be back. For those of you that are new to the show is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. If you don't know much about the show and you're tuning in for the first time, I always like to take a few minutes and explain what the show's about. However, I also want to make sure that people have time to call if they're regular listeners and they wanted to give me a call and see if there's some way that the Emotion Roadmap and me might be able to help you. Give me a call at 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. That's the number to call if you're interested in giving me a call. And the reason that you might want to call, again, if you're new to the show, is because this show is about helping people become more emotionally intelligent. To help people manage their own emotions more successfully, and also to be able to influence other people and how other people are feeling. The idea of the show is started 15 years ago. It's hard to believe, but I'm in my 15th year broadcasting on WPKN, and the show has got a lot of listeners who have called in and got some help, and a number of times I get people who call back and tell me that the help that I've given them has been successful, and I'm always really pleased to hear that. If you happen to be someone that's called in before and you wanted to talk and tell me about how it went, it's great to hear from you too. 203-336-9756. Again, the show is about helping people deal with community, deal with family, and deal with the workplace. There are plenty of places in our lives where emotions are very much in control of how we respond. And sometimes when the emotions are very powerful, we sometimes are confused about how to respond because we're worried about either escalating a situation, making it worse somehow, or we're just not sure what the right choice is. So whether it's a decision, a conflict, a challenge of some kind that you face, the Emotion Roadmap helps people to focus on what are the emotions that are in play. One of the things I've discovered over the years of being on the radio and also doing this professionally is that people sometimes struggle because emotions are either inside themselves, are very strong and very powerful and very conflicted. And so they become doubtful and uncertain how to proceed. And one of the things that has happened over the years in working with the Emotion Roadmap, I found that if I help people focus specifically on how they're feeling and how anyone else who might be key is feeling, if I can help you just first start by describing what's happening and then talking to me about how you're feeling and how other people who might be key to whatever it is that you're involved with, how he or she or they might be feeling, I then ask you to think, if the feelings are helpful, great, but if they're not, if the feelings aren't helpful and perhaps might even serve as an obstacle to you being successful at accomplishing whatever you're setting out to do, then is there some way I might be able to help you think through what might be better to feel? What might be better to feel? And if I can help you find a better feeling, a more compelling, ideal feeling that you want for your circumstance, And perhaps the same for others who might be key. What is he or she or they feeling, and what would be ideal for them to feel? If I can help you figure that out, the next step in the roadmap is to say, how do we get from what you might be feeling that is always interesting and informative, but not always helpful, to what would be ideal to feel? How do we get you there? What would it take to make you feel the way you want to feel? What would be ideal to feel? And for others, what would be ideal for them to feel? How do we do that? And that's the concept of moving from one emotion to another. I've got a caller. Just a minute. This is Chuck Wolfe. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Oh, hi, Chuck. This is Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Hi.
What can I do for you today?
Well, I think your show is interesting, and I like how you say, how do we want other people to feel? And right now, I feel angry.
Okay.
And I think my anger is based on fear, obviously. So I thought that was interesting if I could turn it around to change how I'm expressing my emotions to make somebody else feel like, instead of belittling them, you want them to feel good about themselves, even though you're angry.
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said, Gene. So if you have an anger or operating out of fear, it's not always where anger comes from, but they're certainly closely related at times. And then if you're dealing with somebody else, there's another person that's playing a role in all of this. So if I could ask you, if you're comfortable, just describing a little bit of your context and your situation, then maybe I can help you walk through what I was just talking about in terms of using the emotion roadmap to be helpful.
Okay, so they want to develop our street, and our street's really wet, and it's going to affect our drinking water, and it's really kind of obvious, but they just won't let go of the bone of doing this. So they've been entertaining us and pushing it aside and stuff, and then recently at a meeting, one of the guys was like, well, it's really time to move on and get on with developing and push this town forward. And I'm thinking, in my way of thinking, forward would be not developing, and it would be protecting the resources we have right now. Their way of looking at forward is to pave everything, which will actually cost us more in the long run. You contaminate our drinking water. So it's very frustrating.
Okay, so the key here is that you've got a situation that isn't another person. It's a town board of some kind that wants to move ahead with what they're calling progress, and you think it's going to be very impactful in a negative way in your street and to your drinking water, and so that's the fear and the anger combined. Is that right?
Yes, and sometimes it just consumes my spare time, and I'm I'm really tired of how do I just let go of this even for an hour?
Right. So if I try to help you deal with the feelings, there's two ways you might go. One is if it's happening and there's no choice, in other words, you've exhausted all your possible ways of addressing this that might turn this around. That's one possibility. If that's the case, then one of the things you want to be able to help move forward is, they're not wrong in saying let go, but I'm not saying let go because of what they're saying. I'm saying let go in terms of your own health, your own mental health, and decide, okay, if this is really happening here, what happens next for me and my family, and what do I do next, and how do I not only move my feelings, but how do I move forward with any kind of meaningful plan that makes sense. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is, have you actually exhausted all your resources? In other words, is there some way to change how they're feeling about this so that they really believe what you are desperately trying to get them to believe, that this is actually more harmful than helpful? And so I don't know if you feel like you've exhausted all your resources around this.
Almost, except for one really big one, and that is that nobody has discussed any numbers on the costs of well water remediation, and that would also be charged to the municipality. So if you go ahead with your development and yay, you think it changes the tax base, but no one's added in the cost of replacing all the damaged water in the neighborhoods. That'd be my last avenue. Not actually sure how to do that calculation or who to call. But that would be my last avenue to show that your idea is really, if you want to go for the money, more expensive in the long run.
So part of what you are hoping maybe with this phone call isn't necessarily how to let go, because you don't want to let go still. You still
And I
feel
have
like,
to either that or move.
yeah, well, that's one of the things you have to think about, right?
I know we've been looking.
Yeah, so that's the other part. So I think when you're faced with a conundrum in a sense where there's going to be something happening that you are trying desperately to prevent, your likelihood of preventing it sounds slim to me, but not impossible. And so then the next question is, do I move? Where do I move? How do I move? How fast do I move before all this happens? So those are two separate kinds of
Yep.
possibilities, right?
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things that you're feeling, I think, along with fear and anger, I got to say, I'm thinking you're pretty anxious about this.
Yep.
So one of the things that would help with the anxiety, I think, is to have a clearly laid out plan. One of the things that helps with anxiety is to feel as though you have a plan, and the plans that you would need, it sounds to me, Gene, if I heard you right, in terms of feeling better about this, would be that you have a plan about where and when and how to move, and that you have to, I think, maybe move forward. It sounds like you're moving forward on this already, so I'm not going to say anything that's new to you, but maybe with more energy and more commitment to that's really where you have to go. If you're right about what you've told me, and again, I'm just hearing what you're saying, of course.
Yeah. So you think, now that you say that, it's like maybe I would feel better if I was a little more proactive, like actually talk to my bank about what loans you can get and what we could afford and what kind of financial direction we were going in that way. Then I would have even more of a clearer idea than just jumping ship with no life preserver.
What do you think? Does that sound like it makes any sense to you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because that's one thing I have been avoiding is trying to talk to the bank and see like how it all is going to fall into place. It's been a long time since I've moved, so.
Understood. And it's not a comfortable experience, and it's not something that you desire. So all in all, it's really hard to get yourself past the point of procrastinating because you're really hoping that somehow this stops and you don't have to move.
I know, you're going to make me cry. You're right.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to make you cry. I'm trying to be helpful, but I think...
Well, you're breaking through the chains here, my friend.
Well, that's what the intent is trying to get you to... I think one of the things you'll find is once you do all this, it'll free you up to be more vocal and more strong in your protestation against this, because you'll feel comfortable that you've got an outlet. But
okay.
what you want to do is feel like you're in charge and you're in control of how you're feeling as you're going through this.
Okay, I'm going to get out of the corner. Don't back myself in. Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's totally helps.
Okay. Let me just, maybe if you haven't already, have you talked to the Department of Environmental Protection?
Oh, yeah, everybody's been out here. Yale professors, UConn professors, DEP.
Yeah, I thought probably. So
everybody. We even had the leading state hydrogeologist who wrote all the reports. I mean, everyone's been here. It's just a dog with a bone. You got to watch them. They're pretty tough. You don't want to corner a dog with a bone.
Well, at one time we had something in the neighborhood where I live where people wanted to. The town had committed to doing a lot of work with. They paid a huge amount of money to have operations and capital equipment for creating more sewers in town. And our street is a really good street for septic systems, and everybody had septic systems. And when we found out what it was going to cost us, we decided that we kind of contacted everybody in the neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, there was only 2 people out of 50 that were willing to go, that wanted a sewer system. And we went down and we went en masse to a town meeting. And we really were very strong against what this was going to do to our town and what it was going to cost everybody. And nobody felt like they could afford this. Nobody needed it. Nobody was asking for it. Why are we doing it? Just because we bought the equipment and the town needs to find something to do? Do it somewhere else, not in our street. And it actually stopped it. So I don't know if you've tried organizing the neighborhood.
We did scenic road designation, and every house but one signed up, and then and they wouldn't pass the scenic road designation because they thought we were using it to block the development, and they just shut us off. And they said we were a scenic disappointment, so you would never pass. It was really nice.
Oh my, that's
so we went in front
harsh.
of the town.
That's
Yeah,
harsh.
it's been pretty swearing at us and stuff. It's kind of fun.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well,
But see, there again, you had the monetary numbers, and see, that's what I'm missing again. That gives you more clout.
yeah. So I don't know where you'd go for the wellness activity that you're thinking of.
You're right. That's yes. I have my own bank thing to do, and the cost of well water remediation, because they would have to drill, just like your neighborhood, bring in all the pipes and all the water to every house.
Yeah, and everybody would have to pay a pretty big fee. So even the people that didn't want to be a scenic street might not want to pay the price.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's not going to be inexpensive.
I'm pretty sure you're right about that. So, well, anyway, Gene, I appreciate the call. I hope that that's given you something to think about and to feel better.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You bet. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, that's how the show works, folks. It's trying to help people understand the feelings that are in play, and if you want to address the feelings, you try and figure out some kind of strategy to kind of move forward from where you start to where you want to get to. So, if you got inspired by Gina and you want to call, again, the number is 203-336-9756. The show's the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'm Chuck Wolfe. So I encourage everybody to call. It's best to call early in the show because the show's on from the first and second Wednesdays of each month for 55 minutes. It's just a little under an hour because at the end of my slot we have public radio announcements and some messages from the community and from WPKN. So give us a call if you can. 203-336-9756. If you've got something you want to chat about, I encourage you to call early. Well, so I have time to talk with you and kind of help you through. Okay. Again, for those of you new to the show is about helping people deal with all kinds of situations in the community. And that's the one that we're just dealing with Gene. Sometimes it's situations with people in your family, which often are challenging emotionally. And often it's something to do with work, which is another opportunity where all kinds of emotional challenges show up, whether it's somebody that you're dealing with who works for you, or somebody that's a peer of yours that you work with, where you have overlapping responsibilities for certain decisions and you have very different styles and very different ideas about how to work through certain circumstances that you're facing, and you're wondering how to deal with that. And one of the things that happens around that has to do with style, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But also the idea of having somebody that maybe you work for that is a leader, that doesn't necessarily have the kind of empathic concern that you would like to see in a leader. Now, not everybody is a big proponent of empathy in the workplace, but most everybody is. I say not everybody. Some people are just very task-focused. They really believe work's about coming in and doing a job, doing it at a high level of quality, being highly motivated. And then at the end of the day, the job is done and you receive a paycheck at some point for the work that you do. And that the focus for you and what's most important to you is how you spend time with your family. And what happens at work, whether people care about you or not, isn't as important as one, being respected and being appreciated and valued for what you do. But you don't need somebody to be empathetic and worry about what's going on in your life. On the other hand, people that experience an empathetic leader, somebody who really cares for them, who really supports them, who really is interested in whether their son got into the college of his choice, whether the daughter who is dealing with some remedial work in high school is going to pass, or whether somebody who is struggling with some kind of drugs or alcohol problems. If you have people that really care about you as a person, not just as a worker, it often makes the workplace feel even more like a community that you really want to belong to and you value being a member of. That is often a reason why people leave the workplace, is because they don't experience that with their immediate supervisor. So maybe you have something going on with somebody who's a leader at work that you don't feel as though seems to care about you or others. And for those of you who are leaders, and you wonder, why should I need to care about somebody's work life? I mean, outside of their work life, why do I need to care about somebody's outside life, their family life, what goes on besides work. What I'm here to do is to make sure people understand what they need to do, that they're doing it at a high level, that they have the tools they need, that if there's a conflict, I help them address it. And that's what leadership's about for you. And I don't disagree with that. I think that's true. What I am saying is that the research supports the idea that when people seem to care more than just about the workplace, seem to have some care and concern for others in the workplace, when they really value who works for them, and that's clear to the people in their team, that people will stay and fight for you. They will go through burning buildings for you. They will do a lot for you because they understand what you do for them, and that matters. They care about that. There's a lot of research that supports that. Not saying you have to be an empathetic leader. I'm saying that it pays dividends. I'm not saying you should do it just because it pays dividends. It's just kind of the nice thing, and sometimes feels like the right thing to do. So again, the show's the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. The Emotion Roadmap is this tool that asks 4 questions. It says, what is it that people are feeling in what's going on for you where you seem to be stuck, or you seem to be upset about, or you seem to be fearful of? What is it that's causing you to not be able to move forward in some way? How are you feeling at this point? How would you like to feel ideally? So that's the first question, is how are you feeling? The second question is the question of what would be more ideal to feel. How do I get you from what you are feeling to what you want to feel? Jean described her feelings as angry and fearful, and those were real. But I also sensed a level of anxiety. And I think in circumstances like the one she described, getting control over what's happening so you feel more in charge, so that whether the town makes the decision you want them to make, you're prepared either way to move forward with your life in ways that sound extremely challenging at first, but over time, even if you haven't moved in a long time, if you decide that you are going to move, a new adventure opens up to you, a new chapter, a new idea about, well, I thought I was going to stay here forever, but I guess I don't want to stay here with what's going to come. And so I need to decide, where else might I like to live? What else would be fun for me? What else would be exciting for me? I know it doesn't start with those questions, but you want to start thinking like that so that you begin to realize that, a new adventure is scary, but also exciting at the same time. And hopefully the end result is a really positive move that happens for you. Again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. So for those of you who are just joining and haven't really thought about or know about the Emotion Roadmap, it's the idea created a number of years ago, working with current president of Yale University, Peter Salovey, Jack Mayer, University of New Hampshire professor, and David Caruso, who is a consultant and also has a position at Yale University. The three of them were the authors of something called the Mayer-Salovey-Caruso Emotional Intelligence Test, which is a concept that Salovey and Mayer conceived of back in the 1980s and published a journal article in 1990 that said, we have found and described a new intelligence, an intelligence that relates to emotions, and it's based on having emotional abilities. Now, that concept was new. It was brand new, and people didn't know about it at that time, and people thought, a new intelligence? Are you kidding? That was the reaction of many in the psychology community where they first published their article. But as time went on, people got more interested in the idea that there is a different intelligence than analytic intelligence, than IQ. There's this emotional intelligence. And what Mayer and Salovey said was that it's based on 4 different abilities. The ability to perceive or identify emotions in yourself and others, the ability to use emotions effectively with yourself and others, the ability to understand emotions, how they work, how to change them, how to keep them, how to maintain them if they're working the way you want them to, and finally, how do you manage emotions in yourself and in others? How do you manage your own emotions, and how do you manage the emotions of others? So those were the abilities. And they said, actually, we can measure your ability. Now, I don't talk a lot about this because not very many people have access to or are going to take this test called the Mayer-Salovey-Caruso Emotional Intelligence Test. By the way, they shortcut it by just using the initials M for Mayer, S for Salovey, C for Caruso, EI test, EIT. So they call it the Mesquite, MSCEIT. And the Mesquite does measure your abilities. Now, one of the things that I've done over the years was I helped them to publish the precursor to the Mesquite. It was another form of emotional intelligence testing that also measured abilities. It was called the Multi-Factor Emotional Intelligence Scale. They asked me to help them by publishing that for them before the Mesquite came out. And so that was in the 1990s. And then the Mesquite came out in 2001, and I helped them to write the certification program to teach people how to use this. And what this does for people is it helps you know why maybe you struggle with certain emotional situations. It was fascinating for me because, I'd like to think that I'm brilliant at all these emotional abilities. I'm not. I mean, there were certain things that I was really high on and some things I wasn't quite so high on. And so as I learned about where I had some weakness, I developed compensating strategies, and I also learned some ways to improve those weaknesses. So that's the beauty of this, is that you can actually get better at emotional intelligence if you understand it. Once I realized that, and I realized how helpful it was to me in my life and in the client work that I did professionally as a leadership coach or as a speaker in organizations, one of the things that I discovered was that this idea of having emotional abilities is really powerful and important to understand. So let me give you a quick example of how important this can be and why sometimes it can be life-changing to realize that certain abilities, this category of emotional abilities, you might learn something about yourself where you might have some weaknesses that are impacting your life in very meaningful ways and not in good ways often. So let's start with just the idea of identifying emotions. If you think about how people might identify emotions, how good are you, do you think, at knowing what the people around you are feeling? How in touch with you are the feelings that you might feel yourself? Like right now, can you stop and just ask yourself, what am I feeling? And can you just describe it accurately? Can you describe accurately how you're feeling? One of the things that I've learned early on about this field is that we don't have a very large vocabulary for talking about our feelings. We often struggle with, beyond saying, hey, I'm sad, glad, mad, anxious, confused. I mean, we have some labels that jump out at us, but not a lot. So when I ask people, how are you feeling? Sometimes they're really uncertain what to say, because a lot of times it isn't just one feeling either, is it? Sometimes we're feeling mixed. We're anxious about a few things perhaps, and we're happy about some other things, and we have a conflict we have to deal with, so we're a little nervous and maybe angry about a certain circumstance. So we might be feeling all those things at any point in time. So when I ask you how you're feeling, it's not always an easy, simple answer. And we're not always thinking about our feelings. In fact, most of the time we're not thinking about our feelings unless they're really powerful and intense. Right? If you're angry, it's pretty clear you're angry. If you're happy, pretty clear when you're happy, when something really good has happened. When you're feeling creative, you might not really think about it that often, but if you're in the middle of creating something really exciting in your workplace or at home and in your workshop or just even in landscaping or something, when you're being creative, you probably might be in touch with that if somebody stopped and asked you, but you're not thinking about it. You're not thinking about how you feel. So when I first became immersed in this field back in the late 1990s, and I discovered that there were abilities, I began to wonder about this. And I realized that if I don't know what somebody's feeling, and I'm going down a road where I think I'm trying to sell them something or influence the way they think or feel or behave, and I think I've got a great plan for doing that, and I keep pushing on it, and they keep resisting, but I'm not catching that they're resisting. I just think my plan's great. I keep going and going and going until they just say, look, enough already, Chuck. I heard you. I don't want to do that. How much more clear can I be? Sometimes you got to be really confronted with the fact that, hey, you're not hearing the other person. You're not sensing the other person's emotions. You're not seeing what the other person is feeling or hearing what the other person is feeling. And that's okay. I mean, that happens to all of us at times. But what if you're really weak at that and never really good at it? You're never really are good at identifying when something that you've said has upset somebody that you care about, somebody at work or home, in the community, anywhere. What if I'm sure we've all had the experience of dealing with somebody that seems rude or just sarcastic and somewhat disrespectful and just always seeming to say things that are upsetting to other people. And even when we tell them about it, well, they're sorry, they didn't mean to do that, but they don't seem to get it and they just keep doing it over and over again. So one of the things that occurred to me, I actually wrote an article about this for a journal online, that I said, when you are low in your ability to identify how people are feeling, and you are considered by many to have a poor attitude toward others because of the way you often behave, you might think about the fact that I don't intend to make others feel bad. I don't intend to be disrespectful and cause others to be upset by what I say. I think I'm being funny. I think I'm just being humorous, and I don't mind when people do that to me, and so I do it in turn, and I think it's fine. Only it isn't. Only it isn't. But you don't know it's not fine, because even though people from time to time are willing to say to you, hey, that's not funny. I didn't appreciate that. I wish you wouldn't do that. You still don't get it. But partly the reason you don't get it is you're really low in your ability to know when you're doing something that's upsetting to somebody else, unless it's extremely obvious. Now, one of the things that happens if you recognize that you're a person or you're dealing with a person that doesn't have the ability to identify how you're feeling and how you're reacting to them, or you're the person who has low abilities in this area, is there anything you might do about it? And the answer is yes. But let's just step back and say, if I recognize that somebody that I'm with, that I like a lot for a lot of reasons, but they're often saying things that are pretty upsetting to me and to others around them, and I've on occasion taken a bit of a risk and said something to them about it. Most people don't like to confront others about behaviors they don't like, but let's say on occasion I've said something to them and they said, gee, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But they continue to do it, but they don't realize when they're doing it. They don't get it, and they haven't got it, and they don't recognize that they have low ability to identify how others are feeling. They continue to operate as if they do know what others are feeling and continue to make the same kinds of mistakes over and over again. And I realize, maybe for the first time, that this person really isn't a jerk. Now, they might be a jerk, but let's assume that they're not really a jerk. They don't mean to be mean to others and disrespectful and hurtful. And yet, that's how they're coming across. But it's an ability issue. They don't have the ability to recognize when they've hurt somebody else and to clean it up really quickly if they make that mistake, because it's kind of habitual now with them because of the way that they grew up and the things that they've done all their lives. And, it's kind of like I get this feeling about that's who I am. That's the way I am. Take me as I am or don't take me at all. But but once they understand that they really don't have the ability to understand, and they've been hurting people all their lives, maybe. First of all, they might be very sad about that, and they want to know, what can I do different? I don't want to be doing that. So my coaching to them is, if you've got this, in a sense, disability around being able to identify how you're making other people feel, then constantly think hard before you say something about another person, about a characteristic of another person, or about a behavior or an action taken by another person. Think hard about what you're going to say and how it might make them feel. Now, realizing this isn't simple and isn't going to be easy to do, and that it isn't just every once in a while, you've got to make this a lifelong habit to improve how you relate to others. And it's none of us are perfect, so you'll still continue to make some errors in judgment around what you might say or do, but far less. And people will enjoy being with you far more if you can understand that perhaps this is an ability issue. I don't want people to be upset by the things that I say or do. And yet I seem to create that a lot without meaning to. Think about how you might feel about this person before and after knowing it's an ability issue. The before stage is, man, this person, I like a lot of things about him, but they're such a jerk so often. I really, I don't even want to be friends with him anymore. I don't want him to be, I mean, sometimes if it's a family member, you don't have, you're going to be around no matter what. But, if it's a friend, you don't necessarily have to be. So what I'm trying to say is that knowing something about our emotional abilities can be really informative and even life-changing. Because if I recognize that this other person doesn't really know that the things they say and do are kind of creating an impact that's really negative for a lot of other people that they are with and around. But once they know that, and once they have seen that they are having this kind of impact without realizing it, they are truly trying to change and modify their behavior, I view them entirely differently. I actually think I'm a little sad for them that they don't recognize this. And in fact, I want to be helpful and see if I can help them with this. If I see something that they do and I know they're working on correcting this, I'll ask for permission. Would it be okay if I see you do one of these things that you're trying to correct, that I tell you if I see it happen? And if they're on board with that, they might be a little heated the moment you tell them, but actually they'll be thankful. Anyway, I wanted to take a little bit of time to help you understand that there are some abilities emotionally that do matter. And sometimes if you're not high in them, you can be a little forgiving of yourself, but also work to see if there's some ways to maybe strengthen them or compensate for them. Another one for me is this idea of managing your own emotions. Managing emotions is something that I'll talk about in a minute, but I also want to give people a chance to call. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So if you're someone who's not feeling the way you want to feel, and you're stuck, or you're dealing with a conflict, or you're having a problem with another person that's important to you, and you're not sure how to proceed, and you want to give me a call, the number is 203-336-9756. And again, the show is the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. It's on WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio. And I like to think in my show, listener-supportive radio. So I'm thinking of doing a promo. My friend Lou Pomalis wants to help me with that for the show. And I like the idea of listener-supported and listener-supportive. And if you feel like calling in and telling me what you think about that, give me a call. 203-336-9756. Okay, so the show is the Emotion Roadmap, and it's helping people by helping them take the wheel and control how they feel. A lot of times feelings are things that just seem like they're the cards you're dealt. You have to play the hand you're dealt. That's sort of a metaphor for life. We have to play the cards we're dealt. But what if I told you you don't have to feel the way you're feeling right now? What if you could change how you feel? What if you could actually change how you feel and also influence how others are feeling? A lot of people think that, well, influencing other people's feelings. First of all, some people will say, absolutely, that's impossible to change how another person feels. That's one view. Another person might say, well, maybe I can sort of influence how they feel. And others will say, no, I can actually change people's feelings. And what's the evidence? Well, maybe for you personally, you've never been successful at changing how anybody else feels. I guess that's a possibility. But chances are the way you behave at times does influence how another person feels. If you and your spouse have a disagreement and you yell at her, that's going to cause her to feel a certain way. But if you come back a few minutes later and you're really apologetic and you're truly sorry and you explain what's going on, why that happened and why it won't happen again, and you feel terrible about it, won't that change how she feels? Maybe not, but there's a chance it will, won't it? Isn't there? So when I say you can change people's feelings, I'm a motivational speaker. Of course I believe you can change people's feelings. You want people to be motivated. I can say things to people that make them feel like they have more control than they felt when they walked in the room. I can change how people feel sometimes, but even if I can't change how you feel, I can change what you're saying to yourself about how you feel. I can help you with the self-talk, the narrative that goes on in your head. And sometimes that's enough to change your behavior, to create a better day for you going forward and a better day for those around you by helping you by either changing your feelings when their feelings aren't particularly helpful or changing the narrative around the feelings that you're having, what you're saying to yourself about them. There's even the possibility sometimes of just knowing what you feel, knowing what your feelings are pushing you towards thinking, and what your feelings are pushing you towards doing, and doing something different. Sometimes you can just get past what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and your actions can be proactive. You can take actions sometimes that negate the negative feelings you might have in a certain circumstance, the negative thoughts that you're having, by doing the right thing. So there's 3 strategies to move past what your feelings are asking you or influencing you to do. One is to actually work on changing the feeling. The second is to change the narrative around the feeling. And the third is to change the action, to consciously recognize what you're feeling, what your thoughts are as a result of your feeling, and say, I'm not going down that road. I'm taking a different roadway. I'm going in a different direction. I'm just taking actions that are better, more helpful, more ideal for me. So all of a sudden, we're not having to play the hand we're dealt, are we? We can change up a lot of what we do. As far as influencing others, as I said, I think lots of times, I think that you can influence how people feel simply by saying things that make sense to them, helping them to see different choices. I think Jean, in the beginning of the show, felt differently at the end of the conversation. She said that, yeah, she was feeling anxious about going to the bank and moving forward, but she right off, it seems like I'd be surprised if today she hasn't already started thinking about, okay, when am I going to call the bank? Is this a good time or do I need to do it tomorrow? But it's going to happen in the next couple of days if she wants to take control. She wants to take the wheel and control how she feels. She's got a strategy that's going to be helpful. So again, if you want to call, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So one of the things that, by the way, I'd asked for some help in the past, and I want to say thank you to the person who suggested that the help I asked for on the show was I asked people if they had any abilities with social media to find ways to do more to promote the show so more people knew that the show existed, so more people might listen to it. I think I have a pretty good listener base already, but sometimes I think if there's ways to promote the show more than what I do, that other people who might have some time on their hands who are regular listeners that know something about social media might want to be active. And I did have a couple people that had indicated that they were interested, but I didn't hear from you. So if you're still listening and you're still interested, love to hear from you. So if you like the show and you're somebody who has some talent with social media and you'd be comfortable thinking about ways to promote the show so more people listen, the number, you can reach me with my email. Let me give you an email. It's C for Charles, J for James. That's my name, CJ. And last name is Wolfe, WOLFE. CJWOLFE at, just repeat it, CJWOLFE.com. I'll repeat it again in a couple minutes. So if you are somebody that's interested, you didn't have some place where you could either type into a smartphone or have a paper and pencil or something nearby where you could write it down, the number is the email, is CJWOLFE at CJWOLFE.com. Anybody interested in helping with social media, that'd be great. But one of the people did suggest that I do a new promo, and so I've got a promo that I'm going to be doing with my good friend Lou Pomalis, who was actually the person who got me on the air 15 years ago. Lou was a graduate student at the University of Hartford. Lou has his own show on the air, by the way. He's on the air typically on Sundays in the afternoon, and he's got a jazz show, and he also plays a lot of music that I not just music, but he does some interviews. Some of the interviews are, but he did an interview on Hispanic culture. It's one of the best radio shows I've ever listened to. So Lou's a really talented radio guy, but he's also been helpful to me in getting me on the air. Lou was in my class, and he heard me talking about the emotion roadmap a lot because he was a student, and I was helping the students work through some of their real life circumstances to teach them how to use the emotion roadmap. And Lou said, Chuck, I think this would be great to do on the air with people. So what would you think of being on the radio? So at that time, Bob Johnson was the program director, and Bob was somebody who was willing to support Lou's idea to have me on the show. And I'm in my 15th year, which is pretty phenomenal. Everyone, when I stop back and think about it, I thought, sure, I'll do this for a year, maybe two, possibly. 15 years is kind of shocking, actually. But it's got a nice reception. And one of the things that makes me feel good is that I really like helping people. So it's a gift to me if somebody calls and I'm able to help them. But I also think that anybody that listens to me help somebody. I'm hoping you learn yourself how to use this idea of an emotion roadmap. You want to understand the context. You want to ask people how they're feeling, how are they feeling, and how is anyone who might be key feeling. And then you want to ask, what would be ideal to feel? The idea of a road map is you go from one place to another. An emotion roadmap is you go from one feeling to another. You go from a current feeling to a future feeling. That's the concept. How do you get from one feeling to a more ideal feeling? And then as we talk about that, and I help you with that, what I'm asking people to think about then is, how do you do it? How do you get from where you are and what you're feeling to where you want to be and what you want to feel for you and for anybody else that's key? And then as you're looking at what's possible and you're looking at possible scenarios, if I think it's necessary, I ask, are you able to actually do that? Like in Jean's circumstances, if you listened earlier, is she able to call the bank and start making some decisions about what happens if this truly does come to pass and the town does move forward with paving the road that she's concerned about and worried about her well water and so forth? If she's able to move forward, that's one question. The second question is, are you willing? Is this a strategy you're willing to commit to? And it was. So if you're able and willing, you have the possibility of a successful emotion-based plan. An emotion-based plan. So that's how it works. What are you feeling? What would be ideal to feel? How do you get from what is to what would be ideal? And are you willing and able to use any of the strategies you've thought about to actually make it happen? That's simple enough to say. Not always easy to do. That's why I'm here to help you with it. So again, I've got about 10 minutes left if you want to call. 203-336-9756. I also said I'd give my email out again in case there's somebody who would like to help with promoting the show on social media in some way. My email is cjwolfe@cjwolfe.com. I've got some lovely emails, by the way, from people when I've given out my email about things that they've heard on the show or just saying something nice about the show. So I welcome those as well. But in any case, if you're able to help, I appreciate the support, because I'd love for the show for more people to know about the idea of the emotion roadmap and how it works. As I said, I'm in my 15th year. I hope to continue to be able to do this. I'm hopeful it goes on for a while longer. But it's also possible that at some point the show is going to end. I know it will have to at some point. And so I just want to tell people that if you are interested in being better at managing your own emotions and also being able to influence emotions of others in a positive way, give me a call. 203-336-9756. Okay. So I don't have a call. I'm going to talk about something that's happening on the sports scene, because I'm a big fan of sports. Those of you who are regular listeners know that. So I do want to say a little bit about, first of all, again, congratulations to the Yukon men. They won 2 championships, back-to-back championships, with almost a totally different set of starters. Not total. Tristan Newton was consistent with both groups, but pretty much everybody else, I think, wasn't a starter in last year's team. So it's a pretty remarkable achievement. And now I think most of the starters are all going into the NBA, or at least testing for the NBA, are going to play professional basketball in some location next year because they did so well. And congratulations to UConn and UConn College. And by the way, the UConn president also did something pretty remarkable in terms of handling some of these protestations that are happening on colleges that are making some Jewish students feel unsafe. I think the UConn president, kudos, because apparently the president's response was very positive in terms of making it safe for everyone. The idea of diversity, equity, and inclusivity needs to include everybody. It's not okay to make any students on campus feel unsafe, I think. And so more power to her, to the UConn president for doing that. But also, again, to chat about sports for a bit, I just want to talk about exceeding expectations. I'm someone who grew up in the Massachusetts area, and as a young male growing up in Massachusetts, it's not unusual for be a rabid sports fan, particularly for the Red Sox, the Celtics, and the Patriots and the Bruins. Revolution are coming along, the soccer team. Very interesting. Lionel Messi was in Foxborough to play the other day, and if you know anything about soccer, Lionel Messi is like an unbelievable player, extremely unique soccer player who has just been incredible for numbers of years, and he was incredible at Foxborough. So that sport is growing. I'm not as dedicated a fan to that, but I am a huge I am a huge fan of the Celtics and the Patriots and the Red Sox, and sometimes the Bruins. But in any case, the Red Sox were supposed to have the worst team in baseball, or one of the worst teams this year. They hired a new sort of general manager. I'm not sure that's the exact position. Craig Breslow was actually a Yale graduate, smart guy. Played baseball, actually played for the Red Sox as a pitcher, but he brought in a guy named Andrew Bailey, who was the pitching coach for San Francisco Giants last year. And last year at this time, similar time, the Red Sox had the worst starting pitching numbers of any club in Major League Baseball. This year, they have the best numbers. I don't know if Andrew Bailey is a magician, a sorcerer, but as a Red Sox fan, lifetime fan, it is so much fun to watch them now overexceed. I don't know if it lasts for an entire season, but they are overexceeding expectations, and it's so much fun to see that. And more power to them for having brought in these two guys. Sometimes your leadership makes such an enormous difference in a culture, in the performance of individuals, and this is a rare case where never seen anything like this turnaround. It's many of the same pitchers, and yet they're pitching, and they went from worst to best as a starting pitching crew. Pretty amazing stuff. And then I want to say a little bit about the Patriots too, because the Patriots have they've changed from Bill Belichick, who was an institution for so many years. And, of course, I was glad to be there and go to Patriots games when Bill was the coach and Tom Brady was the quarterback. The last 4 years, anybody that knows football and knows something about the Patriots knows that it's been a very tough scene for them. Bill seems to have lost the clubhouse, and last year the Krafts decided to part ways with them, the owners. And they brought in somebody that the club and the Patriots and Patriots fans and players really respect, who's never been a head coach before, Gerard Mayo. But he's trying very hard to change the culture in the clubhouse and in the way they recruit and the way that they coach, the way that they're going to perform. I think you'll see, like with Dan Hurley, a significant change in performance based on who the leader is. Now, will they be contenders? They've got a lot of things to work through and figure out. So I don't think they'll contend right away, but I think they'll move towards contending. and it will be a place where people will want to play, because Mayo is a coach that people really respect and value and think. I was talking earlier about empathetic leadership. He is an empathetic leader. Bill was not. But Bill, when he had Tom, was someone who got everybody to want to play with them because they knew how to win. Between the two of them, they led that clubhouse. And I think when Tom left, and the way he left, Bill thought he was good without Tom. Bill was often thinking that he didn't need certain players once they reached a certain age or a point where he felt they won't be productive, we need to move on. And he was very cold and calculating about that. And it worked for him for a number of years when Tom was there. It stopped working when Tom was gone. So I wish Bill well. It was great to have him as a coach for a long time, but I'm very excited about the new ownership. And in the Celtics, the president of the Celtics just won the award for Executive of the Year. So congratulations to Brad as the Executive of the Year for the team that he put together for the Celtics, and looks like there could be a Celtics championship this year. That's my sports wrap. That's how I'm ending up today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. Gene, thanks for the call. I always appreciate when somebody calls. Again, if you want to email me, cjwolfe@cjwolfe.com. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back next week, and I look forward to talking with you. I hope you all have a great week. I'm Chuck Wolfe. You've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And as we move forward, you're going to be listening to Nick Jacobs in just a moment. Take care, everybody.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.